Hey, good evening, everyone. Brian Keene here with you. Welcome to another patron live stream. If you are a new patron subscriber, here's the way it works. I post a thread on Patreon where you can ask your questions. And then what we do is once a week or as time allows, I hop on, I do a live stream. It's exclusive to you. Only you have the link. And I answer the questions, and we answer any other questions that you may have in chat. And then we keep that private for a little while. And then a few weeks later, we make it live for everybody so that everybody can enjoy it. But you're the one asking the questions. You're the one that gets to find everything out first. As we always do, while we wait for folks to come into the lobby. Oops, sorry about that. I like to show off cool things from my office that you might like. Let me read this to you. This is a manuscript, by the way. Black screen, low synthesizer rumble, wind whistling, voices whispering. A single word appears in the center of the screen, fading up in eerie red lettering. Phantasm. Behind this, a shimmering Roman numeral 5 appears, also in red lettering, from which a ghostly red smoke emerges. Yes, this is the screenplay, unproduced screenplay, unfilmed screenplay to the original Phantasm 5. We all, of course, know Phantasm Oblivion. This is a completely different story, completely different screenplay. I don't know how many copies of this exist in the world, but I have one. Not going to tell you where I got it, but as most of horror fandom knows, I am the biggest Phantasm fan. I'll put my Phantasm knowledge up against anyone. That franchise, particularly the first movie, is a big reason why I do this for a living. So that is one of the neat things from my collection. I was going through stuff. I got a call today from the partner of Gak, the artist Gak, who, of course, passed away back in 2019. And we were reminiscing. We were talking about old times, and it got me thinking about Richard Lehman. And one thing I wanted to show tonight was a Richard Lehman manuscript that I still have that he gave me. But I couldn't find it in time for this. But I did find something that I thought was lost forever. I haven't even had a chance to read over it other than the first page. This is a very old convention report that I wrote. It's from 1999. I remember writing it. I don't remember who I tried to submit it to, but this was written on a Brother WP 3400 word processor. They don't make those anymore. And the discs for this were long gone. And I didn't think this existed. This printed out copy is the only copy that exists. If you've ever read Sympathy for the Devil, I have a con report in there called If We're Going to Go to Hell, Might As Well Enjoy the Ride. This predates that. It was my very first horror con ever. It was the 1999 World Horror Convention, my very first con report ever. Really the first lengthy piece of nonfiction I'd ever written for publication. It was 3,700 words. I don't believe it was ever published. I don't remember the history behind this. I know somebody commissioned it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yes, it was published. It was published on a website called Masters of Terror. But yeah, I thought this did not exist anymore. It's Sympathy for the Devil era nonfiction. It should be in that collection. It should be near the front of that collection, but it's not, because I didn't know I still had it. And the reason I didn't know I still had it, you can see the bend here in the manuscript. This had, let me scoot out of the way. See that black filing cabinet right there? I've had that as long as I've had my career. I've had that since before my career. I've had that since I was a senior in high school. This had fallen down in behind the filing cabinet. So I don't know. I guess I'll have to retype this and put it up on Patreon. And I know I'm redoing the Fourth Hail Satan book, Leader of the Band, right now. Maybe I could include this in there as like a little extra at the end of the book or something. The third cool thing I want to show you, and then we'll get to the questions. As many of you know, one of the first gigs I had in this business, long before the Rising or any of that, was I was the editor of a newsletter called Jobs in Hell. It was the genre's first email newsletter dealing specifically with markets. Paula Garan did something similar called Dark Echo. But Jobs in Hell was very different than Dark Echo. We were unique. We were, cutting edge for the time. None of those really exist in their entirety anymore. I know Regina Garza Mitchell has a complete set. I believe Kelly Lehman has a complete set. I do not have a complete set, which has always kind of bummed me out. But here I printed out Jobs in Hell, Volume 1, Issue 1. This was the very first issue we ever published. It's a thick thing. I had my first editorial I ever wrote. The special feature was an interview with Don Daria, who then had just become senior editor at Leisure Books, and he was starting a horror line there, and we were wishing him luck. But yeah, this, again, I didn't think I had this anymore. Another bandit had fallen down behind. At one point, I guess probably for the first year, I had printed all these out, and then after that, I just stopped. Maybe I should get in touch with Gina and go through. Like I said, I believe she has an entire run of these, because it occurs to me a lot of these editorials never made it into the Hail Satan books because I just didn't think they were good enough. But I don't know. Maybe folks would like to see them. So I don't know. Anyway, some cool stuff. Was not expecting to find either of these tonight, and they have me just sort of nostalgic and flustered and wondering what the hell else is in that filing cabinet. I really need to go through it and take a look. But yeah, Phantasm 5 screenplay. It was called Phantasm Forever. Pretty badass, right? No, I will not scan it and put it online. No, I will not send you a copy. It was given to me in confidence by somebody very close to the production, even though it never went into production, and I would not do that to that person. So let's go to your questions. There weren't a lot of questions tonight, so this might be a quick one. If you do have more questions, so of course, put them in the chat. Let's go in reverse order. Mr. McCobb asks, if Charlie Brown angered the Great Pumpkin, what form of wrath do you suppose it would bring? You ever cut your pumpkin too early, make your jack-o'-lantern too early, and the weather's nice outside, and by Halloween, your pumpkin is this mushy, rotting thing, looks sort of like the Incredible Melting Man, except in slow motion? That is the wrath that the Great Pumpkin would bring. He would touch Charlie Brown's bulbous, bald head. First of all, what the fuck is up with Charlie Brown? He's a kid, right? He's like 7, 8 years old. He's already got that receding hairline. What is up? What's going on there? But yeah, the Great Pumpkin would touch Charlie Brown's head, and it would rot away like one of those jack-o'-lanterns. Austin asks, congratulations to you and Mary in this awesome new chapter in your lives. Yes, talking about our engagement. John Urbansick, of course, filmed it. We wanted to capture it for Mary so that she could have it later on. And he put that up on Twitter, and now his extended version is up on my YouTube as well. So you can see everything that happened after the proposal. You can see my backup plan, which folks didn't see before that. Austin's question is, besides Patreon, are there other ways that we can support you beyond collecting your novels? With the different options to buy your books, is there one you'd recommend above the others between Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, etc.? That's a great question, but hang on. I'm going to turn this light off because I'm getting a lot of glare on my screen. Actually, let's do something. Let's try something cool here. Where did he go? Let's go with some mood lighting. Let's see how that looks there on your screen. Ooh, I like that, right? Okay. So yeah, Patreon, of course. But other than that, honestly, just buying books. And I don't care where you buy the books. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. I get paid just the same. Audiobooks, ebooks, paperbacks. I'm lucky enough to be in a position in this industry where I can negotiate pretty good terms for myself. So I make money off of all those editions. You don't have to worry about that. The only time I don't get paid is, of course, if you buy my books at a used bookstore. But, I shop at used bookstores. Everybody shops at used bookstores. I'm not saying don't go buy my books at a used bookstore. If you find my books at a used bookstore, have at it. Buy them. I would. But that's the only thing I don't see any money from. But yeah, Patreon, I would say subscribe to my free newsletter on Substack and actually read it. Am I getting paid for that? No, but it is support. I believe we are quickly heading to another massive change in how we communicate. I think the current social media landscape is going away the same way MySpace did and the same way AOL did before that. And I would really, really like to get my entire audience reading my newsletter every week as a means of getting information. Now that will never happen because my audience is too big. There's 25,000 people on Twitter. There's, I think, 12,000 on Facebook, and those are not the same audiences. A lot of them are different people. And then you have, the Reddit, the Brian Keene Reddit forum and Instagram. And today I fucking signed up for TikTok. Somebody shoot me. I'll never get all those people to the newsletter, but it would be great if I could. But yeah, but thank you. That's a good question. Thank you for asking. Teddy asks, outside of horror, what do you like to read? I read a lot of comic books. I don't read modern comic books. It's a nostalgia thing for me. I like what they call the Bronze Age, which is basically the 1970s and the early 80s up to about 1985, 1986. I loved the stories back then. I love everything about them. So I read a lot of those. I read a lot of Westerns, a lot of historical fiction. I read a ton of nonfiction, crime fiction, science fiction, some fantasy. Fantasy is very hit and miss with me these days. I like the old school, dungeon crawls and Lord of the Rings and, all the sword and sorcery novels. I don't know if you guys can hear the meowing in the background or not. As you probably know, I've got a feral cat that I've been taming. She's up here on this floor. Tomorrow she's going to the doctor, but we've been slowly introducing her to the other cats in the house. And right now she is right on the other side of that bookshelf meowing at one of the cats that's downstairs. She wants to get to it and play with it, and she can't because she hasn't been to the doctor yet. So hopefully the mic isn't picking that up. So yeah, Westerns, crime, nonfiction. I read a lot of nonfiction, comic books. I used to read a lot of magazines, but unfortunately there aren't a lot of magazines anymore. My mother used to tease me because my subscriptions were everything from Smithsonian Magazine and National Geographic to Soldier of Fortune and the Fortean Times. I was all over the place. These days, I still read the Fortean Times. Rue Morgue, I still get. Cemetery Ants whenever they ship an issue. And that's about it for magazines. Adam asks, can you give tips and tricks for going from a vague idea for a story to developing a storyline to building characters? Would it be better to start with novellas and build up to novels? All right, well, that's two different questions. So let's start with your second question first. Would it be better to start with novellas and build up to novels? There is no right or wrong answer to this, and there's no right or wrong method. However, the way I did it, I wrote 3 or 4 really terrible practice novels that will never see the light of day. And every author does that. Okay. You should understand that your first published novel will probably not be the first novel you ever write, unless maybe you self-publish it. You have to write a few. and get all the bad writing out of your system before you write a good one. But what I did is, after I wrote those few practice novels, I really started with short stories. The short story market for horror was big back then. We're talking, in the late 90s. So for several years, I wrote short stories and submitted them. And I think that was great practice for a novel. I think it made me a better novel writer, because short stories are infinitely harder to write than a novel. Average short story is 3,000 words. Your average novel is 90,000 words. You can do a lot more with developing a storyline and building characters and plotting with 90,000 words than you can with 3,000 words. A novel gives you room to stretch your legs. A short story, it's got to be very tight. It's got to be very focused. So, I'm not saying don't start out by writing novels or don't start out by writing novellas, but I am saying, the way I did it was I started out writing short stories. Now, for the other part of the question, can you give tips or tricks for going from a vague idea for a story to developing a storyline to building characters? If you have just a vague idea, one thing that works, someone else asked me this on Twitter just last week. One thing that works is start with an opening sentence that you like. And I'll give you a great example. My book, Jack's Magic Beans, that novella, I had no idea what it was going to be about when I started it. All I knew was I had an opening sentence. The lettuce started talking to whatever the character's name halfway through his shift at the Save-A-Lot. No idea what was going to come next, but I typed that sentence and I said, wow, that's great. I have to find out what happens next. And, it's kind of like, I think Stephen King compared it to archaeology. You stumble across that and you start digging through the dirt and you see what you can uncover. If you have just the vaguest idea for a story, I don't ever start writing until I have an opening sentence and an idea of who my characters are. So maybe sit down and just start doing some character sketches. And I don't mean draw them. I mean, just type up a paragraph or even just a couple sentences about who these characters are. Start fleshing them out in your head. As far as storyline goes, there are authors who outline extensively and know exactly every plot beat that's going to happen. And that's okay. And then there are those of us who don't, who pretty much make it up as we go along. And I'm one of those, and that's okay too. You have to find what works for you. But if all you have is a vague idea for a story and you don't have anything else yet, it might not be time to write that story yet. You may want to just let it percolate up here a little bit more. I find that if I know who my characters are, if I have a rough idea of who I'm writing about, the rest of it starts to come pretty easy after that. After all, what drives a plot forward? Character motivation. So if you know who they are and what they're about and what they want, you can build your plot from that. So that would be my suggestions. Like I said, it was a quick Q&A this time over on Patreon. So I'm going to give you all a chance to put some questions here in the comments. Hello, Ann. You got the time right this time. Architect S, which book did you look back on as your favorite book that you have written? That's a good question. And it varies with each book. I'm going to do my top five. Okay, top five. And I don't know that they're in any particular order. They're just my top five. End of the Road, The Girl in the Glider, The Complex, Dark Hollow. Ooh, what would number 5 be? End of the Road, Girl in the Glider, The Complex, Dark Hollow. And probably Ghoul. Ghoul or Kill Whitey. I'm not sure. They'd almost be tied for 5th place. So yeah, good question. Anne asked, do you have any favorite Edgar Rice Burroughs stories or preferred ERB settings and characters? Setting-wise, I love Pellucidar. I think Pellucidar is so much goddamn fun. If you've read my Lost Level books, it's pretty obvious I'm a big Pellucidar fan. But favorite stories, I love them all. I don't know that I could pick one. I was never crazy about the John Carter from Mars stuff. I liked the Marvel Comics adaptations, but was never crazy about the books. But I love Tarzan. I love Pellucidar. I love all that stuff. So yeah. So if anybody else has any more questions, pop them in there. I'm digging this mood lighting. I'm watching this while we do. It hides my Bell's palsy. My mouth doesn't look as malformed with that mood lighting. Ooh. But yeah, if no one else has any more, then we will say goodnight. It was a short one, but that's okay. All right, nobody else has any more. So with that, good night. Oh, you know what? There was something else I wanted to show you. La Casa del Diablo. This is the new book by John Urbancic. Just came out this week. It's a weird Western. So if you like Joe R. Lansdale, you're going to dig this. If you like H.P. Lovecraft or Laird Barron, you're going to dig this because it's also cosmic horror. But if you specifically ever said, I would like to read a cosmic horror weird Western written by Neil Gaiman, then this is the book you will like. I've always said that John's prose is very much in line with readers of Neil Gaiman, China Mieville. I think this is one of the best things he's ever done. Really, really encourage folks to check it out. It's on Kindle and it's on paperback. I keep expecting a ghost to pop up behind you. I don't know. The neighbors have said that the people who lived here before swore this house was haunted, and Mary has heard some creepy things. I've never felt it. But yeah, maybe. I don't know. The lighting is certainly right for it, right? Complex, definitely a top of mind. Thank you very much. Specifically because of one of the characters you killed off. Don't say who in the chat because I don't want to spoil it, but I am curious which character. But yeah, the complex, Mary likes to tell people. I was working on that and pressure at the same time, and she could tell when I was typing the complex versus pressure because she could hear me laughing just gleefully. I loved writing that book. I had so much fun writing that book. It was the kind of book I would want to read. It was just me telling myself a story, and it was so much goddamn fun. And it was also cathartic. I that book got me through J.F. Gonzalez's death. That was pretty much how I began to process it. Of course, anybody who's read End of the Road knows that, I didn't finish processing it till I finished that book. And of course, everybody who has read End of the Road, they ask me, because End of the Road is nonfiction. They say, the end with J.F. Gonzalez's ashes, did you really steal them? And then did you really have to do a reverse theft? Well, here's J.F. Gonzalez's ashes right here. So you figure out for yourself what happened at the end of the book. Jesus, say hi to everybody. Everybody say hi to Jesus. So yeah, gang, that is it for tonight. We'll do this again next week. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for supporting me on Patreon. Seriously, as I've said, Patreon is my number one source of income annually. Your donation of $5 a month keeps the lights on, keeps the spooky mood lighting on, it keeps this roof over our heads, it buys our groceries, it pays our bills, and we really appreciate it. So we'll see you next time. Bye.